evening. And yep, get out of debt is what we're talking about this evening. It's going to be around about an hour session. If it goes over a little bit, that's all cool. If it goes under a little bit, I'm sure nobody's going to be too stressed or upset by that. We're going to be talking about exactly this, regaining control of your finances. And I don't yet know, and I'm not going to ask anybody, by the way, how much you owe. I'm not going to ask anybody to go into any of those awful things. A slight problem with my green screen there, which where we are, there we go. Not going to ask anybody those sorts of questions, but I am going to ask you, perhaps as we're working, you might want a pen and paper, you might want to jot a few things down yourself. And I'm going to suggest you there are only 5 key stages that you need to consider. And if you get those into some kind of order, which I'm going to walk you through in just a moment, then you might find yourself in a slightly more planful position. Because one of the interesting things about debt is how many people who are absolutely together, sorted and organised in all other aspects of their life are a little bit all at sea when it comes to owing money to people. Now, before we really get into this, that key point along the top, I am not a finance professional. Why should you listen to me? Well, here's the thing. Over the last 20 odd years, I've worked with a lot of people that owe a load of money. And we've had a little process and we've worked through it and we've tried to get them into a place where they're a bit more sorted out. And if nothing else, if the whole aim, if the whole outcome of this webinar this evening just prompts you to get your statements out, to open those letters that you've been ignoring, you know, the red ones, to sit down and actually figure out what's your situation, that's a bonus, right? You've made a start on it. With the big problems, we'll look at this in just a moment, of this 5 stages is step 1 and step 2. It's often about the mindset. So if it just starts you doing that, if it gets you to sit down with your partner and go, yeah, we need to figure this out. If it gets you to make a phone call to Citizens Advice or to Step Change or one of the many other people that can help with this, the way I see it, that is a really positive thing. So that's what I'm aiming to do over this session. I'm also going to refer to a couple of people that I've worked with, and one of them works for an organisation, the other one has run their own business. And both of these individuals, smart, intelligent, switched on people. You wouldn't think for a moment if you saw them, if you met them, that they are the kind of person that runs up debt. But in both cases, these 2 people who run very, very senior positions, who are looked up to, who deliver a job that is important, both of them have found themselves in a bit of a tricky situation regarding owing money. And they both have exactly the same outcomes and discussions, as I will share with you in just a moment, that are really, really common when it comes to looking at debt. So there are only 5 stages that we're going to be talking about. The first one sounds a bit harsh. You owe it, so own it. But that relates to exactly what I was just talking about. Very often when I talk to people about debts that they have, there is a list of reasons why, not quite it's not their fault, but why it's been extra difficult for them. You may feel some of this yourself. And as I said earlier on, I'm not going to be asking you to kind of shout up or go, yeah, that's me, or it's not a big fess up thing. If this is just you and your bit of paper and it starts you off, brilliant. We can work with that, right? So the first stage is starting to actually understand if you've got this debt, it's a result of choices you have made. That might sound harsh. You might be thinking, yeah, but my partner did X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but my employer did A, B, and C. Yeah, but yeah, that's all true. But you signed it. You got the money. Well, you got the goods. That's it. That's the way it is. So that's the first point we're going to go into. The second stage really is the one that is quite uncomfortable for many people, and that is down to how much money do you owe. Now, it's up to you whether you want to include, for example, mortgage. Most people doing this program are not going to be considering the mortgage unless you have some money that you owe on top of. So if you have some arrears, you might be wanting to think about that. But for most people, we're looking at things like credit cards, store cars, car loans, often what are called unsecured debts. Cars are often secured against the car, but you get what I mean, they're not secured against your house. We might be looking at those buy now, pay later things. Klarna and ClearPay are both in the news a lot. We might be thinking about those kinds of sums of money that you owe. And interestingly, every time I've ever sat down with anybody, and we've done that point to the how much, they always get that wrong. That's not because they're stupid. It's because of the reason in point 1 we just spoke about. Point 3 is where it starts getting a little bit more exciting. And by the end of this session, you might have got yourself comfortably to thinking about point 3. So at the end of the session, you might do point 1 and point 2, and it's point 3 where you really get the shift. And point 3 is deliberately in the middle. Point 3 is where things start to change. Because what we're going to do is to get some control back over debt. We're going to start to get some positions where instead of them chasing us, we're going to be chasing them. Instead of us thinking, oh, man, it's another phone call. Oh, it's that time of the month again. Instead, we are going to have that connection with them, right? And that fundamentally changes everything. Point 4, of course, is where we want to get to, starting to repay some of this debt. And point 5 is going forward a little bit more into the future. So let's start to get into this. And I'm going to start with a quote from Marilyn Monroe, which might sound an odd one because Marilyn Monroe, a bit of a party girl, bit of a good time. But when you first read this, it's exactly what it looks like. Nothing lasts forever, so live it up, drink it down, laugh it off, avoid the drama, take chances and never have regrets. That sounds brilliant, right? But it's the last part of this quote that is so key. At one point, everything you did was exactly what you wanted. So I referenced these two people that I've worked with fairly recently. And one of them, the one that works for a large organization or worked for a large organization, had discovered that they were going to be made redundant. And it was at this point that everything suddenly came crashing down around their ears because, you know, I've got this debt and that debt. And when we first spoke, everything was the organization's fault. And I understand, if you get made redundant, of course, that's how any of us are going to feel. But that didn't change the reality that this individual had signed for a shed load of debt. And they had the credit cards, and they had the buy now, pay laters, and they had the debt on the car. They had all sorts of debts. Yep. And they were just about managing that once or whilst the job was still rolling. Once the job came to a crash, they had a sudden moment. And one of the problems of dealing with this individual was when we first started talking, in fact, the first 3 or 4 phone calls and face-to-faces after that, was we had to go through this process of why it wasn't their fault. And they had to keep telling me how tough it was and how they'd been stiffed by their employer and how unfair it all was. And I don't doubt that's exactly how they feel. And I don't doubt that's exactly in their mind what happened. But the thing is, you've got to keep in point 1. You owe that money, you own that debt. That's the thing that they have to deal with. And it took a huge amount of time. And in fact, it wasn't until the bailiffs showed up, collecting at that stage a £2,500 debt, which was originally based on an £800 repayment they had to make, that they really had that, yeah, I'm not really taking responsibility for this. And every conversation was, it's the bailiffs are awful, the company is awful. The other individual, when I first sat down, said, I think the company's in debt. It's a bit of a problem. It's not major, in the region of £40,000 to £45,000. Now keep that figure in mind. But what I want to draw your attention to is they said £40,000 to £45,000. Now, if you're a mega corporation, you might have a range. 5 million perhaps. If you're a one-person band, £40,000 to £45,000 is a big difference, isn't it? £5,000 is a huge difference. Let's be absolutely honest here. If you owe a load of money, a fiver is a lot of money. So getting this really clear, changing this mindset right from the start, this point 1 is what we've got to do. We've got to keep Marilyn Monroe in mind. Everything that you signed for, everything that you bought, every decision you made, every time you decided to go for the upgrade of the PlayStation or the extra PlayStation game or the extra, whatever it was you decided to buy, every time you did that, it was what you wanted at that point. And therefore, we've got to work with that and live with that. Now let's keep that in mind and get on to point 2, because point 2 is for some people even more painful, because now we're into how much. So how much, so I've got people coming up the drive here. How much do you actually owe? What is the total level of your debts? And this is where it gets very, very crunchy and a little bit awkward for many, many people. I don't want to be uncomfortable for you, but let's think about this. So I said the person said it was between 40 to 45. Now, the first thing is to note that 40 to 45 isn't precise enough. The second thing to note is when I actually sat down with this individual and we worked it all out, when we figured the whole thing down to the last line, it was nearly £120,000 that they owed. Not 40 to 45, 100 to £120,000. The other person I mentioned, they started out by saying it was roughly, 20 on the one card, it's about 12 on the other, it's about, and we do this, we all tend to do this as humans, we tend to average it down because it's bad news. And we also tend to average up, we overestimate what we think we can pay back. So we tend to talk in terms of, well, it's about, it's roughly, it's thereabouts, it's give or take £5,000. £5,000 is different from £5,545.37. And what I want you to do, once you go through stage one, you owe this money, you're going to pay it back. Stage two is how much money do you owe? So this means get the statements out. It's go to the bottom of the cupboard where you hide bank statements. It means get out the emails, print the emails if you need to, get the texts out, however your various creditors deal with you. Creditors, by the way, are people you owe money to. You are a debtor. In this scenario, they are a creditor. You're a debtor because you have the debt. They're a creditor because they're going to get the credit. So how much money are you owed? And what I need you to do is probably, however you want to do this, but lay everything out on the floor, on the table, on the bed, get everything out so you can see it. There is something strangely quite empowering about this, which is where we're moving to in stage 3 in just a moment. So I'd like you to figure out exactly what you owe and to whom you owe it and when you have to pay it and what the minimums are. Most people can't tell you this. I need you to figure out what you've got to do and pay up each month. You need to have some sense of what the penalties are, because we are starting to move the basic driver of this. The driver isn't going to be all these letters coming to you. The driver is going to be you, because you're going to start to pay this down. So let's just get on to keep all of that in mind and start to think about how this might look. Now, I set this out as a spreadsheet, and you could set this out as a spreadsheet. You could set this out as a notepad, entirely up to you, but I would suggest you have something specific, not the back of an envelope. And what you will notice there is a few key points. So first of all, if we look down where I've got those various details, if we look down where I've got those various details, you can see here, I've gone down to the penny amount. That sounds stupid, right? I mean, 1157.23. I was 1150 or 1100 quid. No, because that's what we were just talking about. You've got to get this precise. And when you spreadsheet it, it will give you the total. If you've not used a spreadsheet before, I'm going to tell you that this could be your opportunity to learn a whole new skill. It's not difficult. It's fiddly as hell when you first play, but it's very, very helpful. You've got to record down the interest rates. You need to know what the interest rates are. So we're going to figure out where you get all this detail if you don't have it clear to hand, but you've got to get these details. The minimum payment is not the same as what you need to pay to get it cleared. So most debts you have will have a minimum payment and will have, this is the settlement figure. So if you wanted to clear it today, this is what you owe. You're going to record that minimum payment. So you can see our car, for example, in this example, 1157.23, 7.5% interest. There are, it's £85 is the minimum payment, and you'll notice that currently goes out on the 3rd. All right. Now you're going to record all of this. Spreadsheet is better, but a book will absolutely do the job as well. I'll come on to overpaying clear data notes in just a moment, but I want you to get this set out. Now, an interesting thing will happen. If and when you do this, if you've done the mindset thing first, so it's not your fault, sorry, it's not you've gone past the it's not my fault thing. You've done this, you're dealing with it, right? That's where we are. Second point then is, how much is it that we've got to deal with? And it's at this point, sometimes people feel a little bit, almost released, because up until now, it's when I got those guys calling me, those guys, it feels awful. This moves us towards actually, right, now I know what my debt is. So now I can start to do something with it, because we're going to get on to point 3, which is where we talk about getting in control. And I said to you, point 3 is kind of the pivot. So whether you use digital, paperwork, spreadsheet, it doesn't matter. But I want you to get all of those details I've just shown you. And I want you to also put down things like the contact details and your account details. Because what you're going to be doing is contacting each of your creditors. And I want you to catch up with them, and you're going to find out what's your settlement figure. Now, your settlement figure is, if you paid it off today, how much is it? And that will often be a little bit different from the figures on the statements. And the reason is, interest is usually charged on a per day basis. Which means if you call today, what's my settlement figure? They might say, well, it's this, and they might have a close of account fee. They might have a stepping out early of the agreement fee. They might have all of those things. If you don't know that, this is what you've got to phone up and ask. But I want you to have the conversation and to get used to calling, and to do this, if you need to, fairly regularly. To start with, you just need to get this information down. You need to make sure you've got your account details, because you know what it's like. What's the sort code? What's the account? Oh, I don't know. What's the roll number? I'm not too sure. You want all of that listed on your spreadsheet or in your special book or whatever you're going to be doing. You also need to ask that question just above my head here. Can you overpay? And overpaying is going to be key when we start to work down on these debts. Now, some places, there are some loans. So the chap I mentioned, the £40,000 to £45,000 debt, turned out to be near 120. That person has signed a business loan with an organisation that does not allow overpayment. You either keep paying for the full term or you pay the whole thing. But what you can't do is pay more each month. Now, that's a really harsh style of loan. And I suspect that person didn't know that when they got themselves into an awful lot of trouble. So you want to check that you can overpay. Sometimes with mortgages, for example, you will be allowed to pay up to 10% of the remaining debt in any 1 year to avoid any particular penalties. In some cases, you'll have a fixed rate, and therefore, whilst the fixed rate is in place, you can't overpay beyond, say, that 10%. So I need you to find out, can you overpay? So this is going to be some phone calls, but key to this is you're going to phone up, you're going to say, I'm going to start paying down my debt, I'm going to start getting control of my debt, and I want to check some details, please. This will be quite a nice experience once you've done the first 1 or 2. Have a cup of tea with you, or a cup of coffee, a couple of biscuits. Keep it nice. And at this point, point 3, you might be starting to think, this is awful. So you might want to talk to Citizens Advice. You might want to talk to Step Change. There are many debt agencies that will help you. Step Change is a very well-known one. And they will work with you. You have debt counsellors if you wish. They'll make the phone call with you, possibly for you. But I would strongly recommend you might want to, after talking with a partner or whoever you want to share these sorts of things with, you might want to have the conversation that is, right, I'm going to actually get in control of this. Point 3 is where everything changes. So you remember, point 1, it's your debt, so own it. Point 2, how much is your debt? Get it all precisely leveled out, which is what we're doing here. And point 3, we're now changing the dynamic. You are now going to your creditors. You're finding out how much you owe them. You're working out with them what it's going to take to clear the debt with them. Now, sometimes people who have got their debts completely out of control will be helped by somebody like Citizens Advice or Step Change, and they will have a conversation with those particular creditors to get agreement, for example, on freezing interest rates. The individual I spoke about, not the business owner, the other person, had managed to get all of their interest rates frozen, which was brilliant, really good move, but then wasn't actually making any payments to reduce anything. Not so smart. So at this stage, you might be thinking, I've got to start now, I've kind of got the hang of this now, but this feels a little bit nerve-wracking. So you might want to do this with somebody, and I've mentioned a couple of agencies there that you could consider talking to. There are 2 very famous ways for reducing your debt. You could just pile into either of these. I'll talk about the benefits of each in a moment. You could just pile straight into this. You could jump straight to point 4 and reduce your debt. But I would advise you look at points 1, 2, and 3 first, because it will make it far, far easier for you. Strangely, people have done it in the order I've just shared with you, tend to actually quite enjoy updating their spreadsheets because they can see they've got something else paid off or ticked off. They can see that actually they had recorded the rate at 7.3%, but the actual rate was 6.3%, so they got less to pay back than they thought. Now, there are two key ways that you might want to consider. I'm going to suggest we talk about Avalanche first. Avalanche is mathematically the way you should consider paying your debts. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at your list of debts, and this is why you have everything laid out, and you're going to pick the one with the highest interest rate. Now, often I've talked about Avalanche and Snowball when I've done videos on TikTok, and a number of people will come up and tell me that I'm completely wrong about Snowball. I'll come to that in a moment, and you should only ever pay the highest interest rate first. You can see on the example over here that the store credit, £613.97 at 45% is the first one to pay. Mathematically, that's right. You should pay the one with the highest interest rate because, of course, that's increasing faster because the interest rate's higher. So mathematically, it would make sense to go to store credit first. After you pay that, you would then move to our next highest interest rate, which is 38% on credit card 3. So we're absolutely clear, for this strategy to work, you must pay all of the minimums on time on all of the other dates. So in this strategy, you would be paying 85 for car, 94 for credit card 1, 245 for 2, 347 for 3, store credit 91 minimum, plus, we'll come to that in a minute, and then buy now, pay later, £75. Now let's say that every month you have £50 spare or £100 spare or whatever. Let's say you have bonuses some month or tips or whatever you get extra money from, you would only ever pay that additional money into store credit. That's for Avalanche. So you would put it all against the one with the highest interest rate. Your aim being to get that loan down as fast as possible. Now, what happens is, as you get to the end of, I've got a question. I will come to questions in a moment, if I may. I'm not going to call any of these names out, by the way, for questions, just to be nice about stuff. So when you get down to the end of store credits, now you've been paying off £91 a month plus the bonuses. What you will then do is move that £91 to your next one. In this case, we said credit card 3. So you're paying £347 there already, plus you're now paying £91, which is what you were paying for store credits, plus still any spare money. So that's Avalanche. And what you can see there is, sorry, go back, I'm doing two buttons. Snowball, however, uses a similar process, but you're going to go with the smallest debt first, not the highest interest rate. So people often point out that mathematically you should do Avalanche, and you're right. But there's a reason why some people will find Snowball easier. And the reason is to do with the way our brains work. So if we look at this one, we can see that the lowest amount is still store credit. So if we're going to do Snowball, we would pay store credit first, but then we would move to credit card 1. You can see that's the next smallest amount at £835.51. Now, interestingly, if I move from store credit to credit card 1, I'm going from 45% to 28% repayment. So why would I do that? Because clearly I'm accumulating interest still on the ones that are higher than credit card 1. But the reason is it's down to mindset. So for some people, actually many people I've spoken to, it feels more like we're making progress if we start with the smallest amount and roll upwards. So exactly the same idea. What we're looking to do is pay that small one, in this case, the £91 a month, get the store credit wiped out. At that point, we would take that £91 we've been paying, and we'd then start paying that into credit card 1. So credit card 1, the minimum is £94, plus we'd be paying £91, plus any other spare money we get. Now, what's key to this is communication with the lender. So it might be every 3 months, every 6 months. You're going to try and keep update to this as well, but you would contact each of these lenders or the lender that you're overpaying and explain what you're doing. Then you can catch up with them. And I find that typically every 6 months, if you ask for a settlement figure, it will be better than you think because of the way interest is calculated. So even though I might track every £10 I pay in against that debt, by the time I get to a settlement figure, it looks more attractive than it did at the time. Let me just deal with a question here. Can a 10-year debt still affect me getting credit in the future? Most debts leave the credit file after 10 years. Most debts do leave the credit file after 6 years. Most debts do leave the credit file after 6 years. Yes. Arguable, it shouldn't. 6 years is largely, if you read into or look into any discussion about any debt, it should be fine after 6 years, so long as, I mean, I was literally watching a thing about this 2 days ago, and 6 years came up on 3 separate occasions. The only caveat they put in was if you then sort of turned your behavior into good behavior, into responsible borrowing behavior, they were going to be cool with it. If clearly you got it cleared and then went back to stupid things is a bit judgmental, poor handling of one's money and one's loans, for example, then that is likely to have more issues further down the line. Thank you for that question. So, Avalanche or Snowball, 2 key ways that you might wish to consider this. Avalanche makes more mathematical sense. Snowball makes more human sense. There are debt advisors who will advise the Snowball, even though it will pay you, it will cost you more in the process. On a personal basis, I really like the Snowball. So I don't have any debt. I don't have any personal debt. I don't have any unsecured debt, but I have investment debt. So that's been a long-term process. It's always been there. I've known it's always been there. It's kind of, I'd hate to say it's not real money. That'd be a really ill-advised thing to say, but it doesn't touch me. It's kept at arm's length. And I use the Snowball to reduce those investment debts very, very fast. And there's something interesting about when you start with a small amount, you knock that out, you knock that out, you knock that out. But increasingly, what you're looking to do is to identify what we might call spare money. And there's a lot more spare money than you would think. Most people are surprised at how much spare money there is. I'm going to introduce you some tools that will help. Excuse me 1 second. So, first of all, suggest you find yourself an overpayment calculator. They're all over Google. There's millions of them, literally. But you want to find an overpayment calculator because the interesting thing about debt, if, as I said, you phone up and ask for a settlement figure, the settlement figure is I want to pay today is often less than the figure you're expecting. And the reason is because interest is calculated in most loans on a daily basis. So if you pay it sooner than the end of the month, you're going to have less to pay. And this is why overpayment is so powerful. So let's say you go through all your figures and you work out you've got £10 a month spare. And you think, God, that's never going to change anything. I'll save it up to be £50 or £100 and take it off the debt. Actually, you're better to pay that £10 in as you get it. I'll give you a really interesting example. If you worked, your main job was whatever it was, but you had an evening shift at the local bar and you got paid cash every week, you might find that taking that cash and paying it into your debt will give you a dramatic increase in the pay down of your debt. And the reason is because of that interest being charged per day. So whereas paying back your debt at the end of each month, right, in the way that credit cards and store cards normally work, actually, if you start paying during the month, you'll see that come down figure, that figure come down faster, which is why when I talk about the settlement figure, it is often in a better shape than you thought it was going to be. So get yourself an overpayment calculator, find one you like, there are loads, and you should find something like what's the debt, what's the interest rate, do you want to do a lump sum or a regular, what's the amount you regularly want to pay off, and you'll see something like what's the life of the loan, 5 years, right? If I pay off £10 a month, what does that do? Well, that would reduce it to 3 years and 8 months. That's worth having, because then you can start tweaking it. The second thing I'm going to tell you about is Snoop. I've mentioned this before on some of my TikToks. That's what Snoop looks like. And it's actually on my link tree right now. If you download Snoop, there's a £5 welcome payment you get. Just so we're absolutely clear, I've used Snoop for about 2 years now. It's not one of those in-app purchase things where you get it for free and then they charge you money. It's not something you have to pay for. There's no charge for it. What I like about Snoop is it does exactly what it sounds like. So you connect Snoop to your various suppliers and to your bank accounts. Now, to get the £5, there we go, to get the £5 payment, you do have to sign in. You do have to connect it to at least one bank, and you do need to use it like what they describe as a normal user. What I mean by that is if you join it, hope to collect your £5 and then leave it, you're not going to get the £5. Right? So it's free to join. And what it does very, very cleverly is it looks at your spending patterns. So it's exactly like a Snoop looking over your shoulder. And it works out when you have money going out, when you have money coming in, what you normally pay. It spots any changes. So if you give it permission to notify you, it will ping and it will say, your utilities bill is normally this much, but this month it's this much. Is that okay? So it's brilliant for fraud, for example. It's also very, very good, which I didn't know until recently, in spotting if you've been a bit lazy with updating any of your suppliers. So I advocate changing your suppliers most years, at least every 2 years, right? Snoop will tell you if you've had a supplier for a certain amount of time, and maybe there might be some cheaper people online. And if you click the button, it will then go and find them for you. It's a really, really nice little app. So if it's something that interests you, all I would suggest is, obviously you can download it anywhere, but if you download it from me here, you get a £5 once you've used it a few times. You do need to connect at least one bank account to it. Now, when you do that the first time, everything in your brain will be going, is this safe? Is this sensible? So do whatever research you want on it to feel comfortable. I have 9 bank accounts connected to it. So I've gone all in. So I have company bank accounts, I have personal accounts, I have household accounts, all connected to it. And then I've got my water, my insurances, my utility bills, literally everything's connected into it. And it just pings the moment it notices any change in pattern. It's a really useful app. Spreadsheets I've already mentioned. And if you've never used a spreadsheet, I suggest you get used to it. I suggest you load one up and get the sense of what it can actually do for you, because once you've done it, it will amaze you how much it will really, really help you. I did say, I'll come back to that in just a second. I did say I'd refer to these other points above me. One of the things I have on my spreadsheet for my investment debt program, so what am I overpaying? So I have a second spreadsheet that tracks whichever one I'm hitting at the moment. So far I've been able to delete 2 completely. And the third one I'm now working on. Every single time I put even a tenner into that account, because it's digital, yeah, it's literally ding, 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 done. I'm now making little 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds on TikTok all day long. That money is unexpected money. And that goes straight into whichever my target debt is. Now, what's lovely about this is that all the other ones, they're all regularly paid by direct debit. They're all squeaky clean. I've got an amazing credit rating for all of them. But the one that's being targeted currently, usually, let's say on a quiet month. On a quiet month, it might get 5 additional payments in over the month. And at the end of the month, it gets the minimum payment, plus it gets the lump sum that's the amalgamation of the 2 previous amounts. So it's getting the minimum plus the lump sum plus 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 payments every single month. So that account is just being hit all the time with cash. It's really, really easy. And if you have that all spreadsheeted, it makes it a lot easier. So I have the spreadsheet there. I overpay, I track all that. That means that when I check up with the settlement figure, it's often lower than I thought. So again, that gets an update. I have a clear date there. That will be a prediction using the overpayment calculator I just mentioned. So that's predicting when it's going to clear. So now I've got it gamified, if you've heard of that phrase. Now I've got a target. It should be clear in 18 months. Great. Can I bring it to 17 months? Can I bring it to 16 months? What's fascinating now, we've completely reversed the psychology. Remember I said at the start, everybody I've ever spoken to with a debt has no real idea how much debt they've got, and it's kind of not their fault. And I'm suggesting we reverse that totally. It's your responsibility. You've got it. This is exactly how much you owe. And now we're in charge of it. We're going to the lenders, to our creditors, and we are figuring out and working with them to clear this debt. So this totally changes everything. So can I get it to 17 months? What's interesting, of course, you get to 3 months from the end and you think, well, it's only this amount. I could probably clear that. Actually, I could probably get rid of that that football cards collection I've had in my garage for 10 years. I keep saying it's worth some money, but I've never, ever cleaned out. And then I could work out on eBay it's worth £100, and that's another £100 off the debt. All of these things suddenly become very, very clear to you. It starts to become a little bit more almost entrepreneurial. You find yourself walking around a car boot thinking, well, actually, if I could buy that for £10 and sell it for 30 quid, that's 20 quid, that could go straight in. And then I'm almost there. Something like a spreadsheet will fundamentally change your perspective of how it all looks. So let me just go back there. You might want to consider jar saving. If you've not come across jar saving, Starling as a bank account has it built into their standard offer. I think most banks do these days. There's an account I saw recently called Hyperjar. If you get paid in cash, have actual jars. But the idea is as simple as it sounds, and again, works for you and puts you back in control rather than here's my pay. Oh man, I've got to pay all these different accounts. So instead, what you're going to do is to figure out, well, that's my household income, that's my mortgage or my rent, that's my heating, that's my various things, my food, all the things you're going to do. You of course have the opportunity then to go, well, I've been spending £100 a week on whatever. Can I reduce that to 95? And if you can, you've got an additional 5 that goes into your debt jar. So consider that. That for some people is a step too far. I use digital spaces, they're called, on Starling for my company accounts. And again, it's a game changer. Money comes in, VAT goes over there, corporation tax goes over there, personal tax goes over there, operational expenses go over there, marketing goes over, and so on. It absolutely changes everything. And finally, I've said your phone, because I would like you to get to the point where at least once per month, you've got to check your spreadsheet. You're going to just keep an eye, if you're using online banking, that everything's up to date. Most of us, when we get into a debt situation, you might identify with this. Most of us prefer not to talk to the creditor. We work on the basis of if we don't hear from them, it's probably not so bad. We work on the basis of, I've not heard from them for 3 weeks, everything's probably okay. We're not doing that anymore. So what I'm going to urge you to do is this: check the spreadsheet or your book or your notes or however you're going to do this roughly once a month. Every 2 or 3 months, check whichever key loan you're currently targeting and phone them up. If you don't have an online version, by the way. If you can do it online, perfect. But if you can't, phone them up. What do I owe you today? What's the settlement figure today? I want to make sure these payments are coming through. And this just changes everything. Let's get through to our last couple of points here. By the way, you might notice that the payment dates there are all over the shop. It's worth keeping in mind. You can change the payment dates. These days, it is easier than ever. These days, you can do it usually in the app or the phone or the device that you're using. If you have to phone them up and change it, that's not a problem if it's a direct debit. But it is worth considering a couple of things here. First of all, do you want the dates throughout the month? Well, in the olden days, pre us talking about this, you might have done, because you thought, well, you know, I get clobbered at the start of the month, and I get a week to try and get my breath back, and then I got another clobbering and so on. And you might want to keep going that way. But my hope is that actually what you might want to do is to change those dates. So you might change the dates to be the day you get paid or the day after you get paid for a bit of breathing space. So if you've done your jar technique, you know that you've got the various minimum payments to go out. So they're all sorted. And you know when your lump sum, whether it's Snowball or Avalanche, goes to your target debt. Now, in between that, as I've said, you can overpay on any of these. Really nice and simple. Think also this: If you get paid weekly, if you get bonuses weekly, the example I gave earlier, you can start to set up more regular payments. Most of us pay monthly because that's what we've always done. But if you check your phone app, you've probably got the option to pay weekly or fortnightly. If you phone up your bank, they will probably set up a regular payment weekly if you prefer. And the benefit of doing that, tiny adjustment though it is that instead of paying, say, £500 a month to a loan, if you pay 2 lots of £250 a month, you are hitting that amount faster and quicker. So your interest rate, remember the interest is calculated on the remaining balance. So the quicker you get that amount down, the faster you get that amount down, the less there is to calculate the interest against. So it is really worth considering and playing a little game with. And our final stage, where are we at? Quarter two, fantastic. So the final stage, once you've gone through 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is the big one, starting to get all of these repayments in place, our final stage then is, what is it that you're going to do to start to reduce your ongoing costs? Again, I've spoken about this a little bit on TikTok, but our aim, of course, is to start to generate spare money. And whether you call it spare money or found money or unexpected money, whatever you want to call it, you've got to start doing this, because all spare cash now, you've got to see through the prism of every time I pay it into my target account, I'm reducing that fast. And this is why this fundamentally changes. Rather than I've got those debts at arm's length, I don't want to talk to them, I'm going to avoid them. I've just got a spare 50 quid from my mate because he borrowed it a year ago. Whee, I'm rich. No. That 50 quid straight over there now. It's a rechange of everything. So this will do, to do it properly, this will take you 2 days. You need to sit down and you need to go through your bank statements. And it's better if the statements are printed out rather than online. I'm not saying waste loads of paper, but I am saying perhaps for 2 or 3 months worth, you want them printed out. It just helps. Maybe it won't help you. Most people I speak with like to see something spread out on the table in front of them. Maybe you'll do it all digitally, I don't know, whatever suits you. 6 months is better, a year is best. So you want the whole spread of where your costs are going. By the way, if you do decide to connect to Snoop, it's on my link tree I showed you earlier, it's a second button down. Snoop will find these connections for you, but you've got to do some of this as well yourself. So if you lay out all of your statements, and when you go through it, there'll be various things that happen. The first is that you will find some regular payments and you won't know what they are. It'll say something like 3R7S, £3. You go, what's that? And you'll assume it was just some bank thing. You look to the previous month and there was one there, and the month before, and the month before, and the month before. You've got to figure what those are and if you can stop them. Now, it's a ball ache. Let's say it is a £3 a month thing, right? Oh, God, £3 a month. Is it really worth it? Yes. If you don't know what it is, that's £36 a year, which could be going into your target account, your Avalanche or Snowball. So you need to find the things you don't know what they are. In most cases, not all cases, in most cases, if you don't know what they are, you probably don't use them anymore. They might be something you signed up for years ago, and you'll be kicking yourself because you realize it was something you've been paying for years and years and years. Many years ago, perhaps 20 years ago, my bank at the time had some kind of, if you sign up for this, you get this, this, and this free, and you know, it's an amazing deal. It's £5 a month or £10 a month. I can't remember what it was. I know the bank in question got into a lot of trouble some years later for selling this to people. And I had this thing for less than a year, maybe 8 or 9 months. It was one of those moments when it was like, just 10 quid a month. You just go, what am I? And I remember phoning up the bank, why, what? And they were like, well, you know, you signed for it, so tough. Find those things that you've signed for, that you don't know what they are, and consider getting rid of them. You probably want to find out what they are before you get rid of them. Second, find the things that you have signed for, that you're paying for regularly, that you don't use. Gym membership is the most common example of this. There is somebody on TikTok at the moment who's doing her debt journey, and she's talked about her Peloton bike a lot. She has freely said, I love my Peloton bike, but I very rarely use it. Every single man, woman, and child who's ever seen her video goes, sell the Peloton bike. It's a couple of grand or whatever they are. It's loads of money. Well, you know, I really like it. And this is the problem. It's not just her, by the way. We all do exactly the same thing. A long time ago, I joined a local gym. Like nearly everybody in the world, I went in month 1 and then stopped going. And it took me 4 months before I actually thought, why don't I just cancel this and go for pay as you go? Because it would be way cheaper than the 4 months I've paid for a month's worth of visits. Whatever it is, if you've bought something, if you've signed up for something, statistically as a human, you don't want to give it up. That might resonate with you. But if you've signed up for something, you probably don't use it anymore. Here's another way you can see it, right? I mentioned the football trading cards in your garage. Nearly everyone has something they bought at some point that they haven't used for years, right? My famous example for me, when I was 17, I bought a synthesizer. I can't play keyboards. I bought a synthesizer and a little amp, a little practice amp. And about 5 years after I bought the synthesizer and the practice amp and realizing that I was not going to be the next Depeche Mode, I sold the synthesizer, but I kept the practice amp because I figured it might be of use, right? So I had this practice amp at 21, 22. Already had it for 5 years, barely used it. I only got rid of it about 20 years later. So I had this practice amp I bought when I was 17. I didn't sell till I was 37, maybe even 40. I'd carried it from house to house to house. All the time I owned it, it was of course reducing in value and it was taking up a space on my shelf. You've probably got stuff that you don't use, but you don't want to sell it because, well, you know, if I sell it, I won't. Here's a classic example, right? If I sell that speaker, I'll only get a £5 for it, but it cost me 50. Okay, but if you don't sell it, what's you going to do with it? I am suggesting you find in your statements, once you've got rid of the things you don't recognize, what are the things you recognize but you know you don't use anymore? You've got to get rid of those. You've got to shift them out of your life. That's quite easy. And by the way, you're going to track all of this. So if at the end of doing this process on those first 2 stages, you've saved £20 a month, that £20 a month for the next year is going to go into your account. You had that £20, you were spending it. It's now going into your target account. What about things you are paying for and you need? I've mentioned Snoop will help you, and we all talk about comparison sites. I did a video on insurance the other day. What are you currently paying for that you haven't challenged for a while? I said you're going to need to use your phone a lot. So here's what I need you to do. You're going to get into the habit, at least when you do this account for 2 days, phone up each of those suppliers. And the script is pretty much this: hi, I just wanted to review my account, please. And they're going to go, well, yeah, what? Well, you know, I've just noticed I've been paying you 37, 47, 57 pounds, 103 pounds a month. And I'm wondering what you can do to get me a better price, please. Now, I might feel it's easier to do it on a comparison site, and you could be right. But you will also find that in some cases, if you phone up, you'll get a better price and a better service. The last time I got a better price for my phone SIM card, and I sack my SIM card supplier usually every year or two, we got to the end of year 1 and they said, this is your renewal. I was like, well, no. And it got to the point where I said to the guy, well, I'm going to have to cancel. I said, well, you know, literally, there's nothing we can do. I said, seriously, just let's have it. No, that's it. You know, that's the best price. Strangely, when I got through to customer retention, as it's called, we were able to get the price I wanted and we were able to reduce it massively. All of these things that you do, you are going to make a bit of a saving. So I'm suggesting you call your utilities, insurance, your network providers, all of these things and get a better price. Again, I've done a video on Now TV. I suggested, having cancelled Now TV at £9.99 a month, the entertainment package, it suddenly pops up, hey, why don't you sign up for 6 more months at £3.99 a month? Well, yes, if you're going to keep it. But if you're going to cancel it, it's better to cancel it completely. That's £10 a month. It's £120 a year that can go into your target account. So I would seriously suggest you must do this last stage, because this last stage is about acquiring some extra cash. every single time I've done this, every single time without fail, right, with anybody who's been on this planet for more than 18 years, everyone who's got a bit of a life, maybe some family, maybe a partner, maybe they rent, maybe they buy, every time I've ever done this, I think the lowest anybody's ever managed to claw back is in the region of about £100 a month. That's £1,200 a year in year one. Now, if you've got £1,200 in year one that can go towards your debt, that's an amazing start, is it not? So you've got to do this, all bonus money, all extra money, the tenner that your mate owes you, the thing you sell down the car boot, the fiver you find down the back of the sofa, all of this is cash that can go into your debt reduction account. And that is really our plan and our process. Let's just have a little look back at that first slide I shared with you. Dribbling in. Our first one there, just as we bring us towards a close. Having got these various debts, having made these choices, having done this, it is a debt, you do owe it, so own it. Now, I know people talk about IVAs, people talk about debt reduction plans, people talk about bankruptcy. Those may be the right thing for you to do. But remember, they all have massive downsides and they may not be suitable for you. They may not work for you. There is a downside to consider. And in those situations, you're always going to talk to a finance professional anyway. For most of us, I hope, if we owe some money, we're going to figure out some ways to get control of it. First stage of that, how much do you owe? To whom? How often? Where? When? Get all of that laid out so you can see it. That, for many of you, will be the moment you actually feel like you can breathe again, because you can see the problem. Once you can see it, you can control it a bit more. Point 3 is when we pivot. Now we start to regain control. You call the creditors. You find out your settlement figure. You find out, can you overpay? You tell them you want to start overpaying. You tell them, how can I repay regular money without having to call you up? Oh, that's the sort code, that's the account number. Brilliant. Let me put that in my my bank. Fantastic. So let me just check this. Can I now make tenors? That great stuff. Any penalty for that? No. That's what we're going to do. So now you're starting to control this. Point 4, you've got to pick. Is it going to be an avalanche or is it going to be a snowball? And you're going to pick one of those and go with it. There are benefits to both. Finally, just start with what you're currently paying elsewhere and what can you do to start to reduce this? What is it that you're going to be able to do to get this down quicker and faster and better? I think that's everything from me. I'm not seeing questions coming in, so I'm going to work on the basis that everyone's pretty happy with that. I'll give you a moment just in case there is anything. If not, I'll bring this webinar to a close. Thank you all, everybody. Much appreciated. And if there's nothing else, I will bring this to a close. Good evening. Take it easy. You know where I am on TikTok, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.